Greetings and welcome back to the Shibori Saga. On this episode, we are going to finalize our piece and put on the backing, as well as attaching a bail to our piece. So here I have is the piece that we've been working on, and basically at this stage, you've pretty much decided that all the beads you want are there, and you like how it looks. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out our shape from the embroidery backing. And what you're going to want to do is actually use the threads as a guide instead of the beads, because that way you don't accidentally cut a thread where you don't want to cut a thread. So take a nice sharp pair of scissors and go ahead and trim off all the excess. There we are, like that. We got a little bit of a border to work with, and such. And then what we're going to do is to take our backing fabric, and we're going to lay it fuzzy side down. We're going to slather some glue all over the threads. Try to avoid the very, very edges because you're going to be stitching that anyway. So you don't have to worry about security there, and it gives the needle a little bit of an easier time sticking or threading through the piece, because going through the glue might not be a fun time. Especially with this stuff, it's extra thick, so it's kind of like passing through rubber. And if you use something harder like a super glue or a resin to stick your backing on, you're not going to be able to get that needle through. Alright, so once everything is glued, you're just going to go ahead and stamp your piece down, smush it, make sure it's firmly pressed onto the fabric, and then you are going to wait until the glue is cured. So I shall see you then. Alright, and here is our piece glued securely to our backing. All we're going to do now is cut it away, and here's where you can kind of get pretty close to the piece and to the work, because all of the threads should be secured underneath the glue, so if you accidentally cut something, it won't fray away. Now you don't want to be completely close to the piece because you still want to have some room to sew the beads on for our border to seal up the backing and to kind of make it give it a more finished appearance. For doing the border, it's up to you what bead shape you want to use. You can use either delicas or seed beads for this. Rounds. Rounds will give you a little bit more of an organic, fluid-looking appearance, whereas delicas, like in this example, it's more of a rigid, linear border. So I'm going to do this one with seed beads, and I will show you what they both look like once they've finished. So I'm going to start from the top, and we're going to do something called a brick stitch. So I have a knotted piece of thread, and I'm going to basically just poke it up from the top. And I got some of the glue in here. And I just put lotion on, so I got my freaking hands all greasy and gnarly. Okay, to start the brick stitch, we've got the knot going on here. The back, I'm actually going to trim it down a little bit so it isn't in the way completely. We're going to secure that at the very end as well. I'm going to thread on 2 seed beads. Then I'm going to make a little whip stitch on the back once more. Whoop. I should not have put lotion on before I did this. There we go. Ow. Okay. So that we have our beads close to the border. Now all we're going to do is pass our needle through the second bead and continue on. Like that. And how it covers up the edges of the fabric. Whee! Come on. There we go. Covers up the edges of the fabric on the end. To do the next stitch, what we're going to do is just add on one more bead, pass it through the back, and do one more stitch. And hopefully not catch our other beads in the process. There we go. Pull it down so it kind of hangs out in the back like that. There we go. So it kind of hangs out in the back like that. And what we're going to do to bring it forward is just pull our needle back up through it. Like that. Okay, once more, I'm just going to pick up one bead, poke it from the back to front, pull it all the way down, then pull up through the bead once more. Okay? Do that all the way around the piece, and then once you've done that, come back and I will show you guys how to finish the bail. Okay, so I've got everything except my last stitch done on the border. So I'm going to basically join these two pieces together. And in order to do that, I'm just going to do a normal stitch where I will add a bead, go back to front, pull it in, let's see, go up, the same bead again, and then all I'm going to do is basically jump over to the next bead, which is actually the very first bead that you added when you started the border. It'll take some practice to kind of determine and guesstimate the gaps and to see how many beads you can fit in a spot. And then in order to reinforce it, I'm just going to basically, I'm through the first bead now, I'm going to go back up through the last bead once more to kind of secure its position. And there you have it. The border is complete, and you can kind of see a comparison of what it looks like between delicas and just simple rounds. It's got a little bit more of an organic shape to it. And from the back, looks more round and dotted and cool. Now all that's left is to put the bail on, and there's a variety of methods you can use to do this. First, you can take a binding like a bail or an earring loop and simply sew it on to your piece, either before or after. If you do it before you start adding the beads and or you put the backing on, you can kind of hide it with beads on top, hide the whole beads on top of it, and sew it into place. Or you can just sew it on top so it just kind of dangles like that instead. But what I like to do is I like to make my own bails as well, using a herringbone stitch. Now, a herringbone stitch utilizes 2 beads at the same time next to each other in order to continue. So what I've got here is I've got 2 different points where I'm going to use the herringbone. On the back side, I'm going to be using that bead and that bead. And then on the front, in order to join these together, I have this bead and that bead to work with in order to anchor them into place. So I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to move over to the 2 beads I want to use. So if you want to make a veil like this, it's kind of a good idea to plan ahead of where you want 2 center beads to be. And, yep. Instead of having like a peak and having 1 bead in the middle, because that's not going to work out as nicely. So I'm going to start my herringbone stitch, and what I do is I'm going to add on 2 beads. Then I'm going to go down and thread it through the next bead over on this border row. Okay, so I end up with 2 beads right on top of each other. Now I need to turn the thread and move it back up to the top of this row. So what I basically do is just thread through the previous bead. My thread is coming out from the right side here. I need to move back up to the left, and I just thread it through. Once again, I'm going to add 2 beads, and I'm going to pass it down to the right, just the top one. Then I need to turn the thread again by moving to the left, the last 2 rows. One more time, add on 2 beads, pass down the topmost right bead, pull it all the way down, turn the thread, go back up through the last 2 rows on the left, like that. And final time, add 2 beads, go down the topmost right, pass up through the leftmost rows, the 2 rows, the leftmost, all the way to the top. Keep doing that until you have about an inch, inch and a half. Take into consideration what kind of chain you are going to be hanging this on, and make sure there's enough room when you curl it over, that there's a loop large enough for the chain to fit through. And yep, keep doing that, and I'll see you when I have finished with this one. Okay, so I have the bail pretty much exactly where the length I want it to, and now I'm going to attach it to the beads at the front. So right now I have, from the front I have my thread coming out of the right, so I'm basically just going to do a herringbone stitch with the 2 top beads that I wanted to put it at. So I'm going to go to the right, like that. Pull it all the way down so that the beads on the bail will line up. Then I'm going to go up the left bead on the pendant and then up the leftmost bead on the bail. Like this. And if I pull it tight, it should act perfectly joined. Like that. Now, in order to reinforce it, you might want to run it through the first 4 beads again in order to keep it in place. And then you tie off your ends, and you are finished. Now, you don't exactly have to use the herringbone stitch in order to do this. You can do it with a peyote bail. You can even do it with a wider bail. Like, you can make it 4 beads across instead of just 2. I like it better than just a regular loop of beads because it's more, it's stronger and it can support a lot more weight than just the loop. That is all. That's it for the basics of the Shibori pendant. And this is far from the end of the series because I have a lot of more, like, advanced techniques and some, inspiration and some other things that I'd like to explore and share with you guys to get you guys kind of on your own in an autopilot form and kind of being able to make your own unique designs by combining a bunch of different things together. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if there's any other things that you'd like me to do. I'd really like doing the longer series because it's basically kind of a breakdown and kind of like an encyclopedia. And I had a lot of fun doing it. So, if there's anything else that you'd like me to do, I would be glad to look it up for you. And, yep, that is the end of this one, and I hope to see you guys next time.